So, yeah, Mahima, would you just tell your story from the beginning so that people can get a little bit of background?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so every time I recall it, it's slightly different. But this, it started for me, I think, about 1.5 years ago. I found his book in a bookstore, I can't remember where. I still haven't read it, but something did transformative.
You're in good company.
But something transformative did come out of that for me. You know how you browse at a bookstore, and I found just 100% of your feelings come from your thinking. And I read a story that was in it, and I meant to look up the book later and never did. But just about a couple of months back, that line kept coming back into my head, and so finally I just Googled just the exact phrase, and I found a whole lot of materials on the 3 principles. I saw some conference videos, and just about a month after that, so I live in Nepal, and we had a big earthquake there a couple months ago, and that was just about a month into me starting to look at all the conference videos and starting to be affected by it. And so, yeah, it was really handy that it sort of came to mind just before I was going to need it, and there was enough time for me to actually look up something. And I had this big epiphany the day of the earthquake, where the first couple of hours, you know, terrified, just like everybody. And then somehow realizing really clearly that if it is true that what's outside and what's inside is sort of unrelated, they're disconnected from each other, then probably in that moment I was as safe as I was ever going to be, and as safe as I had ever been when everything was fine. And for me, that just, it did something miraculous. It just lifted a whole lot of baggage I had around that. And it sort of killed what I think of as the flinch response. You know, when something goes wrong, you sort of shrink, and you think, I have to look after myself, immediate family, house. That response just went poof, like that. And somehow realizing that in just being more neutral like that, I was more engaged, not less. I cared more, but also had more capacity to actually do something about it. Which before it used to be that if something was too intense, either I don't want to go there, or I get there, but I'm somehow unable to give everything because you're constantly terrified that it will be too much for you to handle. And that changed. And I hadn't noticed that as a trait in myself before until it wasn't there. And then I suddenly, realized that I guess all people do that. You get a little bit scared and then you shrink, and that was miraculous to me, that in the middle of something that big, that you could just be a normal, sane human being in the middle of something quite crazy and unfamiliar. So yeah, that's how conversation started with Johnny, and then eventually I'm here for a day today.
Yay! Oh, hang on to it. So something I haven't mentioned yet, but we're working on putting together a thing called the World Clarity Project, which is my vision is that by the year 2030, that this will be the norm for psychology. People will just know that this is how it works. And so the vision is to end chronic psychological suffering by 2030. And so we're looking for opportunities to take this out into the world in different ways. So we sent some books to Mahima, and then we've given her a scholarship place on this program so Mahima can help take this out to people in her community. And then our friends Rudy and Jenny went out and spent like 5 weeks out there, which they said was amazing in so many different ways. But it's so amazing to have you here. And I was just wondering, are you okay to answer questions? Because yesterday the question came up, someone said, well, this is kind of, I'm characterizing a little bit dramatically. But this is all well and good, Jamie, but what about like real situations, like genuinely traumatic? Was it you, Gary, who asked that? Do you guys have any questions for Mahima about her experience or what happens? We'll have to do, tell you what, Mahima, you can take my microphone. We can just pass it back and forth. Just hold it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
It's not so much a question. I was just going to say that, to thank Mahima for answering the question I had yesterday, because the question was, I get the principles, but what happens? How can you apply the principles when it's your feelings are very deep? And I asked the question of the loss of a loved one, but when it's suddenly, you stood up and said your story about when literally your whole world is coming down, everything you know to be true in that respect, physically, in terms of an earthquake, and you can draw on the principles that answer the question. So, yeah, I thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Alison and then Philippe.
So what I'd like to know is, you said that you knew you were safe in the moment, right? How were you not terrified of another earthquake?
Well, actually, we did have many more.
I know.
We had 3 big earthquakes in a month.
Yeah.
But I think it disconnected something for me. Like, I used to think that if I was afraid, it meant it was information about what's going to happen or is happening outside. And just realizing that it isn't. It's just what's happening inside. Like, for example, going to sleep the first night when it was still literally shaking every few minutes. Initially, like, there were still, like, I would see glimpses of it, just being terrified and then thinking, well, just being terrified doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean there's going to be another one. It doesn't mean there isn't. It doesn't mean anything. And so I don't have to base any decisions on it. I don't have to base behavior on it. It's just what's happening inside, and that it's unrelated. I think, and I don't think it's that I tried to apply the principles. I had no idea it applied to anything. I had just started looking and watching some videos. I had no sense that it was anything meaningful at all until then. So in a sense, it happened to me without realizing that it could have been of help to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? And it's sort of building on what Alison asked. Once you saw that actually your feelings are letting you know about thought in the moment and not about what's going on outside, did you become reckless, foolish, unwise in your behavior, dumb, anything like that?
Well, everybody knows the answer to that. Yeah. No, just joking. No. I mean, I think it occurred to me that was more practical, not less, because I had full mental functioning. I was not sort of tied down by thinking all this stuff that was just misinformation. I think it's information about the outside, but it really wasn't. And it was just, without all of that baggage in my head, I found I was more practical, more able to do what I needed to do, because my brain was working. It wasn't like, I didn't have to second guess everything. I didn't have to, and in fact, I think was more safe even physically than before, because you have, I guess, more presence of mind for stuff. You can, you know what's useful and what's not.
What I was saying to people yesterday is you're built for reality. And you went, my way of talking about it was that you went from hanging out in a scary, mind-made la-la land into reality.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what came to me when you were just saying that was, it wasn't that the earthquake wasn't happening, but the fact that it was scary was made up. Like, it was still shaking, but labeling it scary, or that was made up, and yeah, so that was really helpful. Yeah.
Now Felipe, then Katrina, then Carl.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. The whole time you were saying that, I was just asking myself, you were having this inside-out information. How are you able to impact other people, and kind of were you able to share that with others and create that inside-out thinking with other people that were going through that while you were there?
Not explicitly, no. I didn't. It wasn't something that I thought to do at the time. But I think as something I noticed growing up as well, with my parents and things, that the presence of sane human beings does something to people.
Can you say that again? Yeah. Say that again, like a couple of times. I just want people to really hear that.
Yeah, so actually I found that the explicit teaching per se is maybe not necessary, just being somebody with healthy mental functioning. It does something to the people around you. And that's what I found, that, yeah, it seemed organic. And yeah.
So the best way you could create impact was just by being still,
Yeah.
not afraid. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes, because I think your ability to reach out to people really expands with that. Just as you stop thinking so much about yourself, and as self-consciousness drops, I think there is this increased ability to reach out to people, to connect, to do what you need to do, really. Yeah.
Beautiful. Carl? What did you say? The presence of sane people is a good impact.
I think it's an amazing story, and thank you for sharing it. I had several questions that were coming up all at once, kept sticking my hand up. I'm not sure what my question is now. I suppose the question is...
Take a deep breath.
Yes. I suppose the question is, what was keeping you safe?
Well, I don't know if you mean physically. I don't know that I was. Like, we don't know if we are right now. I mean, physically, the thing is, anything can happen, right? But I think the thing that was bothering me before I sort of had an insight was not the physical lack of safety, because I mean, I'm alive, so clearly I was alive even then. But there was something internal. That was what I meant when I said I felt safe or not. It was just a felt sense for something. And again, that it actually had no relevance to what was happening outside, because for all you know, the roof falls down, and then, but if you don't expect it, you're not afraid, because it's not in your thinking in the moment. So I think that's, for me, what my experience of safety was, that on the outside, nobody knows if you're safe. Who knows what happens? But then on the inside, I didn't need to feel unsafe. That was unrelated. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Katrina, did you have a question?
Yes,
Ah, okay. Yeah, please.
I'm interested because I've also experienced a profound sense of security in some really scary situations, which didn't seem scary at the time. And I came to the conclusion that in my own mind, that maybe it was just an inbuilt security system of the body. Because if I take an example, I was in a car hijack and my friend was shot through the window. And of course it was really scary. These guys all around hammering on the window. But even though I was observing what was happening, there was this deep sense of stillness. And that's not just the first time I've experienced it. And I just thought, well, we spend all our lives sort of almost like disaster managing, or what if, and, you know, better not do that in case. But actually at the moment of when there is extreme, what you might think, scary situation, then everything's just okay. And I'm just wondering, is that what we're built for reality? As in, the body just deals with it. We deal with it. Something deals with it in that moment.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think, you know, you're... Oh, yeah, thank you. You're way more than you think you are, you know? Life is always, you don't have to implement inside-out thinking, just like you don't need to implement gravity. It's already handled. It's already how it works. So our experience is always being created from the inside out. And we have the ability to create an idea of something frightening and then feel that and believe that it's coming from the future. But what this understanding, what this glimpse of reality guarantees is that you're never going to be a victim of circumstance. Not because everything's going to work out or anything, but because it's not possible for you to be a victim of circumstance, because there's no circumstance that can make you feel a particular way. And for all I know, if we had an earthquake right now, I'd cry and try and jump out the window. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to respond. And I might think in that moment that I'm a victim of circumstance. But what you've just pointed to and what Mahima's just pointed to is that's not actually possible. It's possible for us to believe we're a victim of circumstance, but it's not possible for us to actually be a victim of circumstance. Just like it's possible for us to believe that the earth is flat or that the sun goes around the earth. It's absolutely possible to believe that. People can think anything. But it never actually works that way. You're always... Sid Banks once said, there's nothing outside you that can hurt you. And there's nothing outside you that can help you, because there is no outside. Any more for any more? Yeah, Marius.
Then I have a question to the last thing you told us right now. So, in the theory, this course cannot help us, but we can help ourselves, sort of.
Well, I can tell you how I'd put it. No, hang on for one more minute, if that's okay with you. How I'd put it is anything you get as a result of being here is going to come from inside of you. It's not going to come through what you do inside your head. It's going to emerge as an insight. My job here is to create a space where that's more likely to happen. But here's the thing. It can happen in an earthquake. So so I don't, I don't tend to stage the courses in war zones or places where there's active seismic activity or anything like that, because I find that people often have quite a lot of thinking about that. But at the level of principle, it's got nothing to do with the context. It's all got to do with the fact that every single one of you, every single one of us has this capacity for a deeper insight into how life already works. Thank you, Mahima. That was beautiful.